Welcome to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, where we discuss dating and other significant relationships.
Well, good morning, señorita.
Good morning, Poppy. We are almost at a new year. Can you believe it?
Wow, this year has gone very fast, and it's been kind of a roller coaster ride, but definitely a lot of blessings, so no complaints.
Here, here. I'll put my hands up in the air on that and toast you. Today's episode, as we close out 2022, is about living single. Can you stay single for so long that you don't really actively pursue a relationship? And we did get some feedback from our Facebook family on that and friends. And I like the topic a lot because I've been asking myself that question here lately. As you know, we talked about how you go through these dating cycles online, meeting people, however it occurs. And, the freedom, honestly, I've been thinking the freedom is a bit addictive. Poppy, what about you?
It is. I mean, the freedom that it brings is definitely a beautiful thing, especially when you were, unhappy, or maybe in your previous experience or romantic relationship, you felt tied down or limited, or just
Mm-hmm.
almost like you were being suppressed, so to speak. It definitely brings that. However, I also think that it does change you and just how you deal with dating in general after you've been single for a long time.
And that's what a lot of our remarks alluded to, especially. I know we both posted it on our Facebook pages, Nelsa Weber and Jorge Medina. Uh, so we've got a couple batches of responses, but on both pages, that was one of the things that I really noticed, that people felt like they were spending that time working on themselves. They weren't willing to settle just because of loneliness. Um, I think one person said they have been by themselves almost like 8 years, I think one of the uh, respondents said, and how um, it just had created such a good space. Like it was by choice. It wasn't the fact that they could not find someone to connect to. It was just a choice that they were just not willing to settle for, just having somebody to fill a spot. And I thought, it's such a different day in relationships. In our parents' day, getting married was the goal, having a family, settling down, the nuclear family, if you will, one boy, one girl, a picket fence, and a house, that could grow into what you needed for your family. But now it's it's a real different reality as far as what family looks like, and whether you agree with the changes or not, from wherever you come, whatever your background is or wherever you are listening, things have changed indeed. So with divorce, um, blended families, single families, two moms, two dads families, I mean, the landscape just looks a lot different than 30 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, as I was thinking about this topic yesterday, as some of these conversations were sparking up, when we posted this on Facebook, one thing that I realized is that when you have been single for a long time, and, long time can be, it's about perspective, right? Because that can vary depending on your point of view. But one thing that I have learned about that is that you become less tolerant.
Yes.
And by that, I mean that even early on, right, if you see something that just doesn't sit well, or if you just see something and you don't like it, more often than not, me personally, like I address it. Like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, if I make plans with a woman and I'm like, hey, let's meet at the restaurant at 7:30, and she's there at 8:15 or 8 o'clock, I'm gonna call her out on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be like, hey, I was here at 7:30. What happened? Like, that's just now what I've become, that, hey, my time is valuable. So if you're not really serious, or if you're not going to meet me with the same energy, then we can, move on.
Right. And I agree. Consistency is the thing for me. And, um, if you can't communicate consistently, if you aren't willing to spend time getting to know one another, that kind of thing, then for me, that becomes a problem. And um, again, it's like I enjoy my own company now to the point where um, I don't need a partner or a mate for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that result in some loneliness? Absolutely. Hell yes. But I feel like valuing myself has become so important in terms of my self confidence, my own self esteem, that kind of thing, that I can't afford to go backwards anymore. And being in a relationship that is not, does not feel like it is valuable or that I'm being valued within it is definitely a no go for me. So, choosing to be single over compromising major issues is definitely one of those things that I'm standing my ground on in this season of my life. And I didn't always. Like I have to say, I got into some lonely periods, especially right after I first became single again. When you're used to having somebody who's with you every night, or you're used to companionship, even hell, sex, those are things that you become um, dependent on, or you become expectant of in a relationship. And so sometimes I think I really chose out of that sense of loneliness in the
Mm,
relationship, as opposed to choosing somebody who is really compatible, really good with me and where I am. We're equally yoked, if you will. And
right.
now I can't go back to that place, because I can look back at some of those relationships now and owe several of y'all some apologies for being such a desperate, lonely woman. So sorry if you're listening to the show right now, but it's just where I was. It was a new type of get used to that I had to acquaint myself with. And in the beginning, I didn't do so well. Dating was not pretty for me in the beginning. So, I feel like now I've got to I've got to stand my ground, and really, if you're gonna do it, to try to be in a better situation, to be with someone who really gets you, you really get them, it's reciprocal, all that stuff that we talk about on the show, good communication and all, then I felt like I got to stop just grasping at whoever shows up to the table.
Yeah,
And
and
I felt like I was in that place.
I've always said, to me, and I think I've been on record of saying, like, I have certain expectations and qualities that I want from a woman for a long-term relationship. Like, as you know, and I've stated this, family, like having
Hmm.
children of my own with a woman is a big deal to me. So whenever I see that a woman is not going to be able to provide that, or just isn't interested in that, then I automatically, I'm upfront and be like, hey, look, we can be friends, we can spend time together, but long term, this is not what I am looking for. So I can't give you that full commitment. So I'm very upfront with those things, because just like I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste her time. And
Hmm.
one thing that I always go back is, if I'm just gonna go settle, then why the hell did I divorce? Like, if you're just gonna go and settle for another person, then why leave the situation that you were? You might as well just stayed with what you
Yeah,
had. So to
absolutely.
me, it's almost like I'm throwing away the sacrifice and the experience and journey that I had to go through with the whole divorce process, if I'm just going to go and settle for somebody who I know or who I feel isn't my person or my woman. Does that make sense?
It does completely. And I think even in some of the comments that we had, that was sort of the feeling that, um, you know, who says being single is a bad thing? Like, that's really a narrative coming from people who are in their happy place with their person. But I think what I've really learned about being single is that I can be happy in myself. Like,
Right.
it doesn't require other people for me to find that internal measure of happiness that I thought only came previously with being happily married, or, being around people all the time, that kind of thing. So even my own definition uh, for single has changed with my own experience. So I totally agree with you on that. Like, settling is not the answer. I really feel that. Now, I'm still eternally optimistic, Poppy. Like, I think, you know, are there, in fact, I'm learning, I think there might be more than one person. Like, we've got billions of people on the earth. And I can remember the first time I heard somebody say, "You mean to tell me you think there's only one person you could fall in love with billions of people?"
I've heard that theory before, that a lot of
Yeah.
there's some new theories out there that suggest that, hey, we have multiple soulmates. You just have to find them. But I think finding them is probably the hard part now, because let's be honest, society has made it a lot more. This is my personal opinion. Society has made it a lot more difficult to meet people organically like we used to, because we've become so technology dependent that we depend on technology for everything, even, for socializing and for romance. So meeting a woman organically just doesn't seem very viable to me these days. And I work from home, so
Yeah.
that used
Limits
to
on that.
be
Hmm.
there. Listen, that used to be, a way to meet people. Or, you go and, you work at a place, and then your coworker would invite you to a function, and then at the function or job function, you would meet new people. That's off the table now, and it's been off the table now for 3 years. And I can definitely say that that has impacted my social life and my dating life in a way, because now I'm pretty much strictly reliant on social media and dating apps.
Well, and I've talked about this before, coming from a smaller town where I was related to a lot of people here. The opportunities for meeting people who lined up with more of my interest
Right.
was different. And so, but I'm finding that, even now, going out in Charlotte, now that I've gotten on dating apps, that still is not necessarily the best pond, if you will, for
Right.
meeting people that have similar backgrounds or interests, or we line up with where we're trying to go. I'm sort of on the other side of raising a family, about to be an empty nester, and so being able to find someone who's um, not necessarily looking for a, a future mother, uh, not necessarily looking to um, be married. Um, because I really, honestly, I have to say, I don't know at this point if marriage in the traditional sense is what I'm looking for. I do know that I want a deep, loving commitment. I feel that with everything in my being, but I'm not so traditional anymore. So I think sometimes that impacts who I meet, because there are a lot of men who still want to play traditional roles. They still want those traditional trappings of family. And for me, I just feel like I'm a bit more expansive in how I can connect with people. And so I'm just like, I don't know that I want to go through the legal uh, system of marriage as we have already practiced it, both of us, because, it only took 15 minutes. I clocked it to actually get through the ceremony, but it took a year and lots of money to undo that. And so I'm just a little wary now of, just putting my whole self. Like, I really want to do, like you said, organic, even in the relationship. Like, we choose to show up every day to be there with one another. We choose to continue to be united. We choose, like, it's not because we're forced legally to have to do it now, or we lose out on all sorts of things if we don't.
No, I think
And that's just my personal opinion. Now, everybody, I know y'all are going, what? But that's my opinion.
no, and I do want to put this out there that there's nothing wrong with being single. I don't see that as the issue in itself. Because at the end of the day, right, what we usually revert back to is, hey, as long as you're happy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're happy with your mate, then be happy with your mate. If you're happy being single for 5 years and, you know, you got other focuses, like there's some people that mention on the thread that, you know, they have children and they've decided to devote most of their time on their children. I think one of our listeners, his name was Alex,
Mm-hmm.
and he mentioned that he's been single for, I know, I want to say at least 10 years or more.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think he mentioned that he was a single father and he focuses his time with his children. And that's kind of his focus. And he said that the benefits of kind of being relatively single, quote unquote, is that it gives him a lot of flexibility when it comes to being a father.
Well,
And you know, and he said, and he even mentioned in his point that, you know, once his son or children grow up, that he can, you know, maybe focus on dating more.
well, and as a mother to daughters, especially, I never really wanted to have kids um, have people in and out of my life to any
Right.
extent. And so I guess, maybe that's another reason why I've not really had sustained long term relationships, because I was just very conscientious that I didn't want my girls to, they've got a relationship with their own dad. So it wasn't about them needing a man in their life. He,
Right.
he is the man in their life. But for me, I'm just very particular about who I want around my children. And then you get them attached. Next thing you know, something happens in the relationship. Kids are, suffering another loss, if you will, like with the divorce. So I just was really very mindful that, and honestly, to protect my children, because everybody who shows you a great face and a good time is not necessarily a good person. And so I really thought about my children's safety, being girls, and knowing stories of students that I had who, you know, had issues with their parents, you know, boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, being abusive to them. And I'm just like, nope, I can't take that chance with my children. I'm just that mom. I'm too protective, and I don't want to be, I don't want anything to go off or jump off that wouldn't have had I not introduced this person into their lives.
No.
And I can say that has happened where I know people who, the kids didn't get along, and I've actually been in one or two relationships where, the person wasn't a good fit for my family, and so that was a big deal. There's so many factors after you've established a life. It is so different than starting out as a young person dating, because there's no real baggage when you're in your 20s or early teens or whatever when you start dating. And once you have all these things established, then especially if, like, let's say you're wealthy and you invite somebody into your life, you don't know if they're after your money, if they're after you, if they're, there's so many other things that make it a lot more complicated than just, we've got mutual interest, we're interested in each other, we're compatible, let's do this. It just seems so simple in my 20s. And now, while I do still enjoy dating, I do still enjoy going out, getting to know people, there are more things to consider than just myself and my feelings,
No. Yeah, and then listen, and I mean, I don't have children, but I am cognizant enough to understand that, for example, anytime that I've dated a woman with kids, I am very aware that, hey, this is her priority. So if you're going to go down this path as a man, as a person, or even as a woman, dating a man who, you know, has children, right, and live with them, etc., we have to be mindful that, hey, this is going to be their priority, and I'm always going to be second fiddle. And if you're not okay with that, you're probably dating the wrong kind of person.
Well, Sue Ellen Liberty, I hope I said her name right. Thank you for commenting, Sue Ellen, and everyone else who was on our Facebook page. But she said, and looking at this, it kind of goes along with what you're talking about. Alex was actually single for 16 years,
Oh,
Papa.
wow. I knew it was
Yeah,
like 10 or more or something, but
but 16 years. I often get asked, why am I single? And I think I've asked people that, and I've been asked that as well. She says that's almost a negative question. And again, I get that. Like, it's almost like people are asking you what's wrong with you. because you're choosing to be single. And there's nothing wrong with that, just like you stated. But it's almost now like for you to be single, and I've had men say this to me like as a compliment, but it really kind of could be a backhanded compliment when you think about it. Like, you're such a beautiful woman. You seem like you've been successful. So why are you single? Like, what's your flaw? Are you crazy?
Oh man.
I did have somebody ask me, "Is she crazy?" Well, according to who you ask, they might say yes. I don't
That
know.
is subjective, but no, you know
Right.
what? Now that I think about it, I've gotten this a few times, right? When I'm
Uh,
getting to know a woman, they'll ask, you seem like a well put together guy. Why are you single? And I have to answer that. I have to attest to that. So, no, you're right. I feel like society as a whole does kind of raise an eyebrow when somebody's single for too long. I mean, I can tell you it happens within my own family. My mom thinks that, like, my mom's worried about me, believe it or not. She's worried that she's like, son, you're now divorced and, you haven't, made your life again. And I'm like, Mom, I'm okay. I mean, I'm happy. I'm content. I got a lot of stuff going on, but I'm choosing to be very careful. Like, I don't want to just jump into something just because, all right, well, I need to get married again or I need to have children. So I need to go find, some random woman that I want to make sure that whatever move I do make, that it's for the right reasons and that it feels good and organic. But I can tell you, yeah, there's definitely concern from Mama Bear
I said,
regarding
Mama
that.
Bear doing her job.
So I have to like talk her down the ledge, like, Mom, it's
Yeah.
okay. I'm fine. But it does, like, that just goes to show you how um society does have that negative stigma. And even, I'll be real, like, even sometimes I have to, like, um, reset my internal conscience when I hear a woman who says she hasn't had a boyfriend in 6 years or 7 years. Because I'm like, why? You're a good looking woman. You seems like, you got some personality. Why have you been single that long? So it is something that kind of
Yeah.
sticks out, whether fair or unfair.
Look, even after Sex in the City, that show about single people, single women in the city. But Tabitha Carry On says being single for too long may get you out of touch with how to be in a relationship or how to treat a partner. What do you think about that one, Poppy?
Oh man, I think that's 100% right. I think there is some merit to that because, like we established, right? Like, when you've been single for so long, you really only put your needs at the forefront,
Mm-hmm.
and you become like, I've had friends ask me, good friends ask me, have you ever thought that maybe you're being too picky? And I've had them ask me that, and I've had to really stop and think. And I'm like, I don't think so. I mean, I just, want a woman that I can connect with that, would like to do the whole family thing. But unfortunately, with my age group and the women that I connect, they're not really looking for that. So it makes it a lot more challenging.
Well,
Um, so I say, hey, I don't have a problem attracting women. That is not my problem, I would say,
all
because
right now, Poppy, you better let the people know.
I meet women all the time. That's not the problem. But when I say, hey, I really like you or I'd like to get to know you, but can you give me a baby? They're like, I got like three of them already. They're about to be in high school. So
Right.
then they're like, yeah, I don't know about having a baby when I'm trying to get these kids out of my own house and become an empty nester. So,
Yeah. Listen, Poppy, I'm gonna be like Mama Bear now. We're gonna have to try some different stuff with you. Got to be some alternative baby making for you, so
you
you
know
can
what?
get the baby, get the
I
woman. No, they don't have
listen.
to come together.
I got to keep my options open, I suppose. But you know
That's
what? I've had people ask that, and I'm like, man, that's a fair question. Are we being too picky?
yeah.
What do you think about that
Well,
from your perspective?
from my perspective, I think I've dated pretty consistently the last couple years or so, but I think I was the problem. I had somebody, I've had a couple people say this to me that I had control issues, which after you've been hurt, after you've been through some stuff, I think that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to ask myself, am I being emotionally unavailable? Because that's what I was attracting. I kept attracting men who only wanted to sort of be like companions and not really in a deep emotional relationship with me. And so I really turned the mirror on myself because I thought, well, they say where you are is what you attract, whatever emotion or whatever place you are in life, sometimes you're attracting like attracts like. And so I really sat down and thought about that with myself and have really been doing some work uh, on myself and looking at, am I cutting people off who really want to get close to me, or am I being more selective and really wanting to see if that person is compatible with me in the long run, not just in this season of my life. And so I think it can happen. um I think you can be a serial dater, um you know if you're especially still kind of in that, enjoying the freedom, enjoying the good time, enjoying the newness of it all. But then I think there comes a tipping point. I think once you've done some real, whether it's therapy, whatever your thing is, to get yourself back, to a healthy state after a major breakup or whatever. I think, yes, you really probably can enjoy being single more than being in a relationship, because when you found peace, I think that's what's happening with me. The more at peace I am, the less willing I am to give up my peaceful state for chaos, if that's
Mm,
comes along with this other person. Like,
that's deep.
yeah, I'm telling you, peace is addictive to me now, Poppy. And I know I can remember times when I would be thinking, no, I don't want to do that. Like whether it was be exclusive or, you know, stop, whatever the thing was. And I would go along with it just because I'm thinking, well, let me try it. But my inside was saying, no, don't do it. And I would not listen to myself. And then, of course, nonsense and foolishness take place because I did not go with my instinct, which was saying to me, this is not the person to do this with. And so, while I don't have any regrets, because I feel like everything was a lesson teaching me that I can trust myself again, that my picker isn't broken. And I think sometimes people think that's what's wrong. They want to be single because they don't trust their own instincts when it comes to like picking somebody who is good for them. And you feel like, well, I just won't pick anybody because every time I pick, things go wrong. And I had to get out of that mindset. And I think now I'm stronger. I'm much more at peace with myself and my decisions. I've come to terms and at peace with my past. And um, I think now I'm really in a good place that if the right person shows up or when the right person shows up, I'll be open. I'll be vulnerable. I'll be able to commit and be deep. Or if the wrong person shows up, I'll be like, get the hell out of here. Like,
Kick rocks. Like you have no, yeah.
yeah.
Like I think that's one of the strong characteristics that you either grow into or find when you become single for a while, that you have no problems telling people to move the hell on. Now, I will say this.
And
So
without
since what's that?
without ghosting. Like you can say it to them. Like I don't need to
Yeah,
just fade out anymore. I know I can tell you. I don't think this is for me. You know.
yeah. I mean, listen. I think when it's appropriate or they want the feedback, then sure, I'm open to sharing that. But my feelings on ghosting. That I don't think it's all wrong. There's
I
sometimes
know.
where it is applicable, but to go back to the original thought is, I do wonder if when you are single too long, do you become more heartless, and it makes it difficult to open up to someone? Because I can say that I've only I've only introduced one woman to my family
Mm-hmm.
since I've been separated and divorced. Only one woman. And I can honestly say that I've only had two women give me those butterfly feelings. And even those feelings, they grew. It wasn't like I met them and I'm like, oh my God, this feels like amazing. It was like something that manifested as time and, just vibing together grew. But it definitely wasn't an instant thing. So I do feel that as we get older, those that puppy love feeling kind of becomes more of a difficult thing to obtain, in my opinion.
Well, I think let's say Janice Zaya says being single too long is great. You find yourself and learn to love everything about you. You realize what you are not willing to take from someone and what you will do differently next time. I really like that point of view because I think it really depends on if you're having a positive or negative experience and what you're trying to get out of the time while you're by yourself. I was in a place where I was bitter and I was angry and I was still reliving the past and I was still talking about it. Oh my God. Again, people who met me at the beginning of my come out stage of dating after, breakups, please forgive me because I was terrible. Oh my God. When I look back, I was like, girl, you were that person.
I think that's inevitable, though. I think we all, when we leave a relationship or marriage or whatever it may be, and it's kind of fresh in our feelings and
Oh,
our mind, I think it's inevitable, right, that we're gonna have some of that sour taste in our mouth, and sometimes it's gonna come out, and
yeah.
it's gonna be on full display, right? Because we're hurt or because we feel that
Mm,
things should have been better, or we were duped, or we were tricked, or whatever. So I think
yeah.
that's natural.
Yeah.
And
But
that's why it's important to take a step back, right? And I,
yeah.
I tell that to people all the time. I've had a lot of friends that, have gone through breakups, and I always suggest, like, hey, take a step back. I would not, I literally will recommend them. I would not recommend you seriously dating anybody right now until you kind of, get in a good space and recover and dissect everything that took place from your past relationship. I
Oh,
literally have shared that. Now
listen,
that sometimes doesn't get followed, but
that
that
was
is
me.
that is the advice that I share. And then people, they're looking at me, they're like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And then like 2 weeks later, "Hey, you want to meet Tommy?" I'm like, "Who the hell is Tommy?"
That part. I was that person. But you've been used to being in a relationship. I was a serial monogamous. I've been used to being in relationships, since I started dating and having real time being single and exploring myself. That just, I mean, I didn't even know that it was a lifestyle. I didn't even know. But now I think I'm in a much more positive place. And I think I have more to offer, not only a partner, but myself. And so I think it really depends on where your state of mind is. And I think if you're still complaining about your exes and what they did to you, if you're still thinking about the hurt you received from somebody, if you're still talking about that on dates, you should, like Poppy says, take some time for yourself because you have not healed and you're not going to find anybody who is really right for you because either number one you're going to scare those people away like I
Mm,
did
right.
and opening volleys, or number two you're going to attract somebody who's going to take advantage of where you are and they're not going to be probably a decent sort. um Anybody
Or you're going to end up settling for something that you probably shouldn't have, but because
right.
you were in a vulnerable state, or because you felt that, hey,
Mhm.
I need a warm body here. I don't give a damn who it is. As long as they, are breathing and got a job, then they're good enough for me. And then obviously we know
and,
that rarely or seldomly works out well. But
and look,
we
this
do
is
want to we do
and
want
for
to be
ladies that
clear.
yeah.
Like, being single is not a bad thing, right? It's, it's a choice. It's a personal choice. The discussion is, how does it change you, and how does it make your outlook on dating and relationships change? And I think that is the real focus of this conversation. But whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant, because if somebody wants to be single because they just want to, then that's on them and it's their discretion. And if that's what makes them happy and tickles their fancy, then so be it.
Well, I tell you what, we had some really, really wonderful commentary on this particular topic, and one of the one of the one or two last ones I want to share. Deneen Vincent Jolly shared she had been 6 years single. She said, I've gained confidence in who I am as a woman, what I desire out of a partner. Because of this, just like you just said, she says, I will not settle for anything less than what I want. The freedom of being able to navigate my own life and desires is refreshing. It gets lonely sometimes, but not lonely enough to spend time with a man just for the sake of company. And I think again, that was the resonating through line for a lot of these that we're saying they're still single. um I just think Amanda Clay says, how long is too long? You've got to define these things for yourself. And I
Right.
think what we're trying to do here on the show, as always, is to give you something to think about, to reflect on, and just to have a good discussion around some of the things that we've had happen with us. You know, you could rush and try to find somebody out there that would check most of the boxes, or maybe even all of them, but there's still that um, unquantifiable chemistry missing, or they still don't make you light up on the inside when you're together. And so you could, just get with the box checker and end up making them miserable, because I think it isn't just about what we want, but are we being fair to the people that we're connected to? I legitimately want all of the people in my life to be happy. And if I'm not the person who can bring you to that place or add to it, because I don't think anybody can really truly make us happy but us. But if I can't add to that, I definitely don't want you to be in a place where you're miserable, where we start not liking each other, where we're just so like we're in the house together, but you're in one room and I'm in another. And we're doing that all the time, not just because we need a little break, but because that's the way we live. But to each his own. Everybody knows what's good for them. But I wanted whoever I'm with to find joy in our time together, not just I can make it with you. Look, or we're a power couple. When we walk into a room, people are looking at us because we're so attractive, or we're so this, or we're so successful. Like that's not my aim with a partner. I'm like, that's the person that should be my refuge on a bad day. That's the person I want to tell my best news to first. That's the person that I want to see smile at me for no reason, and our time together is filled with bliss. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it should be for me. And if it can't be that, well, I can look in the mirror and make myself smile. I can make myself laugh.
Hey, I hear that. I mean, at the end of the day, don't fuck with happy. So whatever you got to do to be happy, then pursue that. And there's multiple ways to find that happiness, whether it be within yourself, or with yourself, or if you surround yourself with a person that adds to that happiness. But again, it's been a wonderful
Yeah.
conversation, a really interesting topic, and I know this is one that we've kind of kicked around for a while, and I just felt like it was the right time to discuss it. And I think it was a great conversation with a lot of things to cover with this topic. But we're closing out the year strong, and better things coming next year.
Yeah, I will salute you on that, Poppy. That's a great sentiment. Happy New Year, everybody. We hope you'll join us again in 2023. Here's to the relationship cycle, Poppy, with Jorge.
Happy New Year, everybody. Stay tuned. Thanks for joining us today on the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Do you have show ideas? Email us at jorgeandnelsa@gmail.com. Follow us on Spotify or anchor.fm for more great shows.